The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Blake Anderson from Facebook.com/GotBlake.
Hi.
Will Pangman from Topeki.
Hi.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. It's time for the 2014 Bitcoin Group Year in Review Spectacular. I wish we had some music or some fireworks or something. Blake, do you have the envelope? Are you ready with the envelope?
I have it right here.
And it's been hermetically sealed?
Hermetically sealed.
Hermetically sealed, left in a jar on Funkin' Wagnall's porch for over 2 weeks. Delivered here by Mr. Blake. Okay, Blake, send us the envelope. Amazing technology. Look at that. And here we have, hermetically sealed, Karnak the Magnificent. Are you ready for the biggest winner in Bitcoin 2014? The answer is right here inside this envelope. Tear it open like that. This little thing. You have to do that for the air. Get inside there. What's it going to be? The biggest winner in Bitcoin 2014 is critics of Bitcoin. The price is down, and they've done nothing but brag for weeks. Bitcoin is the worst investment of 2014. Bitcoin bubble bursts. Bitcoin is over. Of course, if you extend your forecast to the last 14 months, the price still doubled. But still, critics of Bitcoin, the biggest winner in 2014. Moving on to biggest loser. Blake Anderson, who's the biggest loser in Bitcoin 2014?
Moving right along, the biggest loser is the price. I don't think that a lot of people were ready for the monetary policy of Bitcoin to be cranking out as much as it has, and until that 2016 block halving, the price at the end of the year took a big hit as people prepare for that. So I'm going to have to say price.
Will Pangman, biggest loser.
I'm going to have to go with Bitcoin exchanges as a whole. They can't seem their own
The exchanges are fighting back somehow.
And the biggest loser? This one's a tie. Mark Karpelès and Charlie Shrem. At the beginning of 2014, both the CEO of Mt. Gox and the CEO of BitInstant were on top of the world, members of the Bitcoin Foundation board, and proudly documented in the upcoming film The Rise and Rise of Bitcoin. However, their rise was meteoric, and soon they were headed back to Earth. Shrem with a 2-year jail sentence, and Karpelès and Mt. Gox with an ongoing bankruptcy. Best Bitcoin company, Blake Anderson.
Well, I'm thinking the best Bitcoin company for right now is Airbits. They are doing a lot of good interaction with the community for a development that's driven by the community to see what the community wants, and they've done a really great job of taking the desires of the community and turning them into deliverables and a great wallet. So they're a newer wallet, but let's see how Airbits does. They are pretty exciting.
I was especially impressed to hear that they don't store location data for their users. They don't store any data for their users other than a username and a password. They are protecting the data privacy of their users, and that's a bold choice. That user data is valuable. Will, what's your choice for best Bitcoin company?
Well, I think it's hands down gotta be BitPay. There's some interesting publications that come out of the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute out of Austin, Texas. One of the more interesting pieces I read this past year was about, I guess what they were proposing is philanthropic entrepreneurship or philanthropic venture capital, basically. So the idea is to give away as much of your company for free as you can, and you know, with the technology that's ripe for network effect, such as Bitcoin, that will pay off down the road. So BitPay is a company that I see kind of following or doing this, and maybe this is where Daniel Krawitz, who wrote the article, got some of that idea. But they release open source software all the time. They're cross-platform everywhere. They're easy to integrate. Their user interfaces this past year especially have gone way better. And things like the Bitcoin Bowl, I mean, they've done what only they could do and what no other Bitcoin company could do, and that's get on primetime national television, on cable, get 3 million eyes and commercials out there that actually aren't that bad. So I got to say BitPay.
Will's absolutely right. BitPay is the best Bitcoin company of 2014 for sponsoring the Bitcoin Bowl and national media success on ESPN, and for not putting their name on it. A rare occasion of a corporation acting for the good of Bitcoin. And now the other side of the coin, worst Bitcoin company, Blake Anderson.
The worst Bitcoin company this year is a really extra stinky, repulsive turd, and that is Butterfly Labs. I don't think that there's very many people that know who they are that would wish anything but the most terrible of events on those people. So may they have rotten luck in the future.
And it was just bad enough when people were waiting for their pre-orders for Butterfly Labs and losing money because the miners were becoming less valuable. Then when we actually learned that they were joking about it on the inside, allowing employees to take home miners and keep the coins. They weren't mining on a test net, it seems. They were keeping the coins. And they had those foam fingers made that said, BFL, why you no ship? Literally making fun of their customers' troubles. Butterfly Labs, pretty bad. Will Pangman, got an answer? Worst Bitcoin company?
Oh man, this was a really hard one for me because I don't like to hang anybody really, but I think Moolah really, and all their attendant properties, they really deserve it. They came out with a splash early in the year, doing things like the Doge car. They gained trust incredibly quickly and easily, and a whole lot of it, only to, probably provide the most egregious disappointment in the space thus far, just short of Bitstamp, which actually happened in 2015. So, yeah, I think it's Moolah. I mean, people knew Mt. Gox stunk, and they took calculated risks to continue to deal with them. But Moolah kind of, except for Ben Dorenberg and maybe a handful of other people, came out of nowhere and, just ruined a lot of lives.
Moolah even managed to, for a short while, chase the creator of Dogecoin, Jackson Palmer himself, out of Dogecoin. He described them as a cult. He was upset at the community, but I think he was really upset with his dealings with Moolah. And they had that little thing where they publicly put his name out there, and they tried to figure out who that guy was, and that whole mystery there. Jackson Palmer was actually right on that. Moolah was the bad actor in that situation. But the worst Bitcoin company, Mt. Gox, for the second year in a row. We still don't know what happened to the stolen Bitcoin, and the bankruptcy trial continues to drag on. Meanwhile, their black box centralized token substrate model continues to be used and celebrated by other Bitcoin companies. When will people learn? Never let anyone hold your private keys,
and
unless
that's a big
you want
story.
your Bitcoin stolen.
And that's the big story, is that this situation that they have showed how catastrophic it is that everybody's doing it. It's like the lemmings are all headed towards the bridge, and everyone's like, wow, looks like if you're at the front of the pack, you get killed going over the bridge. Then like they're all walking towards the edge too, and that's the big story.
And just like the Bitstamp situation, if you're trading on an exchange, don't leave your money on the exchange. A lot of people haven't been able to access their coins from Bitstamp for the last few days because of their problems. And if they just kept their coins at home, held the private keys themselves, they wouldn't have this problem. But then I know trading is trading. But
nothing is up to the job of securing your coins, least of all an exchange. I mean, cold storage is the only option. And if you're going to have it out of cold storage in a hot exchange or in a hot wallet, an exchange is the least safe option, and probably always will be. So that's right. Go ahead.
Will, go ahead.
It's not hard to pull your coins off an exchange at night when you want to go to bed and throw them on there right as you're making your coffee in the morning to get ready for day trading. It's easy to do. It takes maximum 30 to 60 minutes on either end, and then you got 10 hours of trading ahead of you, and you can feel secure while you're looking at the screen.
There's also percentages. You don't have to keep all your coins that you're trading with. You could back up 10, 20, 30% of them just in case something like this happens, because it's happened before, and sadly it's likely to happen again. Now, most defining moment, the most defining moment in Bitcoin 2014. Let's go to Will first this time. Will, most defining moment.
I think This is another hard question. There's a lot of them. There's so many milestones, and 1 year, 12 months feels like many years when you're staring at Bitcoin all the time. So it's really hard. But I'm going to have to say the Bitcoin bull, just because of those 3 million eyeballs that were exposed to Bitcoin in a very favorable context, a very appetizing or just easy to digest context, and yeah, I mean, college, all the demographics, college kids' parents, college kids, anyone who watches ESPN all day long, which is a lot of people, a lot of bars, taverns, and restaurants. It was amazing to see that come across the TV screen. I was actually at the game, so I didn't get to enjoy the feeling of watching it from home. But I can tell you this, I got a bunch of text messages from friends of mine from the Milwaukee meetup or from other places around the country and the world, actually, like Skype messages and text messages saying people felt like a proud parent watching the Bitcoin Bowl, even if they hated sports. And that said it all.
The Twitter reaction was also great, especially amongst non-Bitcoiners. The general reaction was, Bitcoin has enough money to sponsor a bowl game, which completely opened their eyes to the fact that Bitcoin is a huge ecosystem with incredible companies operating within it, tons of venture capital, and a very exciting space for the future. We might even have gained a few programmers, people who want to program Bitcoin because they saw it on the Bitcoin bull. It was a great moment. Blake Anderson, most defining moment of 2014.
Well, I think that, by the numbers, if we're going to go metrically, Dell accepting Bitcoin was massive, massive news. I mean, they're one of the biggest companies in the history of recorded anything. So, I mean, Michael Dell coming in and being like, we're going to trade computers, which computer people like, for computer currency, and the computery circle of life was, strengthened there, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Dell was also one of the first big startup companies back in the day when you were building PCs out of parts. And they were the one that said, hey, we'll put all the parts together and we'll send you that PC. You don't have to build it yourself anymore. It's a very big innovation back in the day. But I have down for most defining moment of 2014, Overstock.com accepts Bitcoin. One of the first large companies to accept Bitcoin, and more important than that, is the ally that Bitcoin gained in Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne. Byrne, already a radical on Wall Street for calling out naked short selling, continues to innovate in the Bitcoin sphere with his plans for Medici, a distributed stock market. And now the biggest surprise in Bitcoin 2014. Blake Anderson.
I think that one of the biggest surprises was the bear whale. I don't think that the numbers really made sense for the bear whale to do what the bear whale did at the time that it did. So it's kind of a fun event watching the big digital virtual bear whale wash up, and then everybody run with their knives and forks and eat it on the beach really, really fast and see how quickly a hungry environment could eat a whale. I think that was pretty cool. I thought it was funny that people were freaking out because of the ass.
There was a belief that he would cause the price to go down, but the price actually steadied, and people bought all the coins, which was really unexpected. Even by the bear whale, I'd imagine that they didn't think they would be able to sell all of their coins at that price. They might have to pull that order off the board, put a lower order in, but they did sell all coins at 300.
Instead of putting a person in a wood chipper, imagine putting an entire whale in, and then it going in really fast, you'd be like, wow, that was a remarkable event.
All I'm thinking about is Fargo when you mentioned that, Blake, because you're in Minnesota, close enough to
Absolutely.
Fargo. But anyway, I just wanted to chime in about the bear whale. There's an interesting theory that I've heard bandied about, not totally discreditable, I guess, that Tim Draper was the bear whale, and he did so to keep the price stable, not to depress the price, but to keep it stable and low, so that when he won the Silk Road auction, he point for that. That's an interesting theory. I have no, I read it on Reddit. How about that?
I do recall during the bear whale that I was linked to what was believed to be at the time the Draper's Bitcoin account that they won from the first Silk Road auction, and those coins were all still there. Certainly they are billionaires. They could have other stashes of coins, but I do think the Silk Road auction coins were not sold on the bear whale.
I would just posit a guess that if you bought Silk Road coins, those probably wouldn't be the first coins that you bought.
Yeah, definitely not. Meanwhile, let's see, biggest surprise. Let's see, Will, do you have a biggest surprise?
Yes, I definitely cannot leave out this answer. This is This is something I'm pretty sure won't appear on anyone's list, but it should. It is the most cool thing, and I discovered it maybe a month ago, and more recently some new features. Shapeshift.io, one of the awesomest services for Bitcoin and altcoins out there. No account, get whatever altcoin you need. Address that you send Bitcoin to it, and you get the altcoins. No accounts. It's an exchange with no accounts. It's awesome. And there's amazing features they're coming out with. I just discovered Shapeshift Lens the other day, which allows you to pay any alt currency really out of 10 that they support, I guess, for whatever you want to buy that accepts Bitcoin. So if some merchant or service accepts Bitcoin and you only have, quarks, you can buy it using this Shapeshift Lens. Amazing, awesome, simple, and so cool. I can see this thing scaling really well and helping Bitcoin and crypto in general scale really well. No account needed. A lot of people don't like accounts.
Very cool. The biggest surprise in 2014, the Bitcoin price collapse. Nobody saw it coming except all the critics, but they've always been rooting against Bitcoin. I lost money, you lost money, everybody lost money, even the Drapers, and they're billionaires. Next, the Bummest Rap. Will Pangman, what was the Bummest Rap in 2014?
This was a tough one to answer, but I think it has got to be Zoppo. Zoppo kind of started the year with a bunch of news that they were going to have a debit card and they were going to challenge Coinbase and Circle. And Wences is a really eloquent CEO who's further Bitcoin in Latin America and other parts of the world, in America too. I think they got a bum rap because they were a little reckless with their announcement about the debit card and whatever, but that was their mistake. But they got way too much criticism for it, and I don't hear much about them anymore. I don't know how well they're growing, and I think that's why they're the Bummest Rap, because a little bit of a PR snafu with the announcement of the debit card, and then the debit card having fees when it was talked about not having fees, and then no debit card happening at all, and I think they got a bum rap. They're trying to innovate, and they're constrained because they're a U.S. based company, and yeah, they got a little bit too much heat.
It seems like they have pivoted a little. They now have a wallet and a tip bot on Twitter. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but Zappo is still trying to make it. Blake, you have something to say?
I was going to say, always be afraid of centralization mixed with zero fees. It's generally a recipe for something is not being communicated to you. You're not probably engaged in a mutual assent-oriented situation.
And if you can't figure out what the product is you.
Oh,
Blake Anderson, your choice for Bummest Rap.
I would say the Bummest Rap is Ross Ulbricht. He has gotten a bum rap for people say that he has been, he was administering a website as the Dread Pirate Roberts, the Silk Road. They have not produced conducive proof that doesn't violate the Fourth Amendment that he did that. It seems like they're going to just push the case through no matter what, and a lot of people are in support of it because there was some kind of episode of New Housewives or something like that where there was a murder, and they implied that it had been done because of an online drug trade and stuff, and made it seem that he did it, which is the most egregious libel, slander, whatever you want to call it, that I could possibly imagine. So I think that is the bummest of bum raps that I could possibly imagine, that he could sacrifice his life for imprisonment, and that the populace won't come to his aid as they should because this massively popular vapid TV show made it seem like he was guilty when he wasn't. So it's a pretty bum rap.
Additionally, the way they've taken his libertarian beliefs and philosophies out of the court case, instead focusing the public's attention on these so-called alleged murders, which again, they entrapped him, threatening him, then they offered him a fake hitman to take care of the fake threat. So it seems very fake, but we'll have to see how that goes in the trial.
They were going to charge him with a crime that required a body, and there have been no bodies, and that's why there's that one charge that one alleged charge that hasn't been filed.
They certainly had no problem using the murder charge against him in the court of public opinion, though. But you're right, Will. Habeas corpus, present the corpse. But the Bummest Rap is Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto. Newsweek wrongly accused a model train enthusiast and retired engineer Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto of being the Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. Newsweek was very wrong. Definitely the Bummest Rap. Let's see, Blake Anderson, what's the Fairest Rap?
I think that the Fairest Rap is everybody talking about key storage. Keep your own keys. You manage your keys. Don't allow other people to have your coins stored. Don't use services that operate on a token substrate. If you have somebody that you give your Bitcoins and then there's like an integer digit that comes up in some kind of an online wallet that you don't have the keys for, that's not real. That's an IOU of the worst kind. So I think the Fairest Rap is people saying keep your private keys, because when things like Bitstamp go down and lots of people lose their hat, people with their private keys are protected. So I think the Fairest Rap is the keep your private keys protected, and I think it always will be.
From Bitstamp to Moolah to Mt. Gox to Mint Pal, you would have been better off if you kept your private keys. Will Pangman, Fairest Rap.
Well, I had a couple answers written down here, and I'm going to go off script, actually. I'm going to say the Bitcoin Foundation. The community has not been happy with them. They're changing direction this year, and they've got Patrick Merck stepping up now from general counsel to executive director. I think it's a good choice. I appreciate what I've seen from him thus far, and I've been admiring of his work as general counsel for sure. And I admire John Matonis too. I think he probably did as well as he could, but the big reason that I don't think anyone talks about why they have a fair rap in terms of their public image or appreciation from the community is because they have lots of insider information, and I can't think of a better term for that. Happened bad this past year, and they could have maybe mitigated these things. They could have ameliorated some of them before they happened, perhaps. And I think that's a huge responsibility that they failed. They failed this community in protecting it and promoting it and securing it. I think those are the three mission statements that they say they have for Bitcoin, and they've largely ignored that from a human standpoint, especially when things they know can negatively impact Bitcoin in general and the community, and yet they fail to disclose them or fail to work to appease them or put a stop to them. So they have a fair rap.
Well, I think also that in a vacuum of an effort to ameliorate anything that's negative, there would have to be the assumption that they may have done things to exacerbate for their own gains the things that happen. Because if you're not working for amelioration, for protecting the community, it could be assumed that they would have to possibly furnish evidence that they did not make the situation worse and profit. I don't want to go out and say that that's definitely the case, but it's something that people should think about. If there's a group which are pretty sure to have known about something coming down the pipe, and you didn't warn anybody, why didn't you warn anybody? Did you profit from this? And let's see what was up there.
They failed to remove Karpelès and Schrem immediately from the Bitcoin Foundation board as soon as the hint of the crisis began. Also, there were rumors that some Bitcoin Foundation members might have gotten their Bitcoins out of Mt. Gox when no one else was able to get their Bitcoins out. That hasn't been propounded yet, but the idea is still out there. The Fairest Rap? Bitcoin is not dead. Many journalists and media figures have called for the death of Bitcoin, but they're all wrong. From Professor Bitcoin, who claimed that Bitcoin would go to $10 a coin, to many who believe it would not bounce back after the speculative bubble. They have been proven wrong, and they will continue to be proven wrong. Best comeback, Blake Anderson.
I would say the best comeback of the year would be BTC use adoption and activity in China. Chinese BTC activity fell off for a while and came surging back. I don't think that there is a ton left over as far as diversification and really, really, really high upside extended returns when you leave Bitcoin. So you've made some money, you're gotten in and gotten out, then you sit there with your investments and think about what should I invest in? Let's go back and invest in Bitcoin. It's the most exciting, it has the most potential. So it was good to see China bounce back.
And many worried that China, like Russia, would ban Bitcoin. But as we know, you can't really ban Bitcoin because it's an idea, and you can't ban ideas. Will Pangman, best comeback.
So hopefully this answer doesn't confuse too many people. I'll try my best to explain it, but I think the best comeback in Bitcoin has been Charlie Shrem. It was late 2013, or very early 2014 when he was arrested, and he's been on house arrest ever since. And if anything can get you down as a young entrepreneur, like 24-year-old millionaire who's visionary and building solid companies. I mean, BitInstant was a solid company. He had redundancies in place. He's a very smart entrepreneur. The only reason they suspended operations because they were forced to, not because of anything else. And it's a big comeback because this is a guy who was charged with doing business with someone who did business with someone who sold or /laundered Bitcoins on the Silk Road. So there's at least 2 degrees of separation from him and any crime committed with this money. And we all know how much cocaine is on all these $100 bills of U.S. fiat. So it's a comeback because the way he handled this whole situation and what he's doing in the wake of this situation. And he has a 2-year sentence, but it'll get reduced based on time served, even though he's been on house arrest. That will count half, I think, as time served. So he could be out as soon as 8 months. Once he goes in, I think, a couple, like 2 more months, I think he's got as a quote-unquote free man with some ankle jewelry, and then he goes to jail for 8 more months or so, and maybe sooner if he's even really, really well behaved. But it's a comeback because of the class that he's handled it with, what he continues to do, what he's working on, several projects, and the value he brings to this whole ecosystem has been choked briefly by what happened to him. But when he comes out a free man, look out, Charlie Shrem's going to keep building, and he's very young and well, he's got the resources to do it. So he's my comeback.
That's a good point, Will. Shrem remains a sympathetic figure, while Karpellis is completely reviled. I believe you're right. Shrem will be welcomed back into the Bitcoin community and continue to work for Bitcoin companies. While I'm not sure what will happen to Karpellis, the situation is still developing. But the best comeback of 2014, bit of a surprise, the U.S. dollar. Backed by low oil prices due to fracking and shale oil, the U.S. dollar has soared back, beating the price of Bitcoin all the way down to $283, with oil at an unbelievable $50 a barrel, silver down to $16, and gold at $1,200. The U.S. dollar, the best comeback. And it pains me to say that, but the truth is the truth. Now we've got Most Original Thinker 2014, Will Pangman, Most Original Thinker.
Well, I'm going to go with the person who's written. I could go with the whole group of Satoshi Nakamoto Institute, but they're too much of trolls, and I just don't want to give them all that love just yet. Plus, they're young; they got time to grow. I think the person who's inspired me the most in terms of their writing and original thinking is fellow traveler, aka Chris Odom of Open Transactions. I can't say enough about the things I read from his pen, let's say. And his project as well is very forward-thinking. He takes the serverless transactions to a whole new level, so that's really exciting to see.
Open Transaction has kind of fallen off the radar there, but I would like to see it when it's completed. It does sound like a very interesting project. Blake Anderson, Most Original Thinker, 2014.
I think it goes to Vitalik. I mean, if the category is Most Original Thinker, I mean, he is way, way macro with game theory and things like that, trying to really transcend various different issues that happen with software and technology, maybe even outside of the systems and networks that they exist in. So it doesn't get a whole lot more creative than that, especially as a young man. So I have no problem giving it to Vitalik.
Powerful ideas from Vitalik. But the Most Original Thinker of 2014, Chris Ellis. An early member of the Feathercoin community, which was credited by Jackson Palmer as the source for his ideas for Dogecoin. Feathercoin was first to tipping, first to community, first to showing that altcoins truly are a laboratory for new ideas for Bitcoin. Mr. Chris Ellis also pioneered the blockchain ID and continues to break barriers every week on the World Crypto Network. The Bitcoin community is lucky to have Chris Ellis, and he is this year's Most Original Thinker.
That's a great answer. You know, you can tell you've got original thoughts, original projects when people flock to copy them, steal them, co-opt them, and whatever. And Chris, with his ID project and a couple others, has had his share of that.
And even when the copies are more successful, it's still worth identifying the originator of the ideas. And a lot of people don't remember Feathercoin, but it was the first tipping currency. They had the first Twitter tip bot. They had the idea of community from the beginning. And in many ways, Dogecoin copied, mirrored, and expanded on those ideas like good ideas should, building and expanding.
Yeah, I mean, you could really go around the community and chase down a lot of Chris Ellis's intellectual property, which is funny because you would never know it by talking to him. He's not the kind of person that tries to own ideas or patent troll people or talk about negativity. So, yeah, Chris Ellis is a force of nature. I mean, if he was mass-produced, the world would be vastly different, hopefully for the better. So.
And now, best new offering. Blake Anderson, best new offering. 2014.
Best new offering. Well, I mean, I'm stuck on the fact that bitcoinshop.us, you can contact them via email. Go to bitcoinshop.us. They have a lot of stuff that you can buy that's just in their store. But if you have something that you need to buy with Bitcoin that you can't get anywhere else and you want to do the deal, they will bend over backwards to facilitate that deal. So bitcoinshop.us and their willingness to facilitate almost any deal to be happening in Bitcoin, whether you want to buy a snowblower or like a luxurious children's castle from an expensive magazine like toy thing, like anything, you can go through them. So it's pretty cool.
Will Pangman, best new offering.
I don't know if this answer's off limits, but the best new offering of 2014 has to be multi-sig. You know, multi-sig's older than 2014, but in 2014 people actually begin using it and companies are implementing it in their wallets. There are whole new startups focused just on multi-sig and creative security solutions that only Bitcoin could offer humankind. And one of, you know, the amount of problems that will be solved through multi-signature transactions, we haven't even begun to see. This is, I think, going to be the default way to use Bitcoin, let's say 5 years from now. Everything will be multi-sig because the security holes are just too cumbersome to deal with the standard Bitcoin transactions unless you're, you know, Blake Anderson.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like what you said with the security holes, because there's not security holes in Bitcoin. That side of the coin is covered, but there's security holes in human action and what you do and how you do it. And multi-sig helps to reach out of the Bitcoin network and secure the way that you do things. So I think that's a good point that you made.
And it really is the companies offering multi-sig that's made it available. Armory, BitGo, CoPay, CoinKite, companies like this that are offering multi-sig and bringing it to the consumer, making it easier and easier with each iteration of their software. But the best new offering of 2014, everything. Overstock, Dell, Microsoft, Tiger Direct, Expedia. You can now buy everything with Bitcoin. Throw in a late mention for gift accepting Bitcoins, and you can even shop at your beloved Amazon.com, all with the fledgling cryptocurrency. There is now truly nothing that you can't buy with Bitcoin. Best technical innovation of 2014, Will Pangman.
I'm going to go all the way back to about 30 hours in February of 2014, Toronto, Canada, in the upstairs of Bitcoin Decentral, where Amir Taki and a couple other guys took 30 hours and made the prototype for what is now called OpenBazaar. Dark market, best technical innovation. They made a working prototype, and in 30 hours, they won the hackathon. It's been heralded quite a bit throughout the year, but I don't think people grasp just the immense force that a decentralized marketplace like they're working on with OpenBazaar, what that can mean. And it'll just be one of many too. Maybe there will be one that has monopoly market share or something, but this is by far and away the biggest technical problem that was solved this past year, if we look at just the year.
They were also aided by programmers from the Airbits wallet, who have also contributed to the Dark Wallet project, so props to them. Blake Anderson, best technical innovation.
Well, I think like Gift and Apple Pay drawing attention. Apple Pay is in bed deep enough with the antiquity, legacy systems of old. So I'll say, actually, Gift had a lot of development in their app, and I used Gift a lot, GYFT, to be able to purchase things at stores in places where they don't accept Bitcoin. So GYFT Gift is some great stuff, and if you don't already use it, you're wrong, and you should probably get that fixed.
Many people use Gift in stores. You could even buy a gift card at Target while you're in line at Target, then use it at the register and pay essentially in Bitcoin.
I even wait till the total comes up.
Yes, it's also good. But the best technical innovation, also Apple Pay is cool because they're showing people that it's uncool to pay with credit cards, that it's cool to pay with your phones. And that's something that, while Bitcoin makes us aware of, Apple Pay is going to make the larger world aware of the fact that those credit cards are not cool and you need to be moving to something else. And while they think that something else is Apple Pay, we all know that there's a broader world of things you can pay with your phone. But the best technical innovation, and while it wasn't invented last year, it was popularized last year, multi-sig. The ability to secure a Bitcoin wallet with multiple keys, preventing one key from taking all the money without the agreement of the other keys. Truly an innovation in a way that we store Bitcoin and secure Bitcoin. And it's not over yet. Worst technical innovation, Blake Anderson.
The worst technical innovation is again, I mean, the innovation of this was a long time ago, and actually, a lot of economics and philosophical beliefs are about it. But the newest version of this hellish nightmare that we've been railing against is called a token substrate. You have fractional reserve lending and you have the latitude. Here we have a new system where it's like, we're going to work with Bitcoin and the blockchain, but there's things that we need to do with your money or with whatever that we can't do on the blockchain, so we're going to have this other system of account, a substrate, a different layer below the blockchain where we can have the latitude to do what we want. Well, when that happens and people are allowed to fractionally reserve and things like that, that is pretty much every bank failure in history in a nutshell. So the worst invention of this year is the token substrate, bringing the nightmare of fractional reserve banking into the technological adaptation of Bitcoin to legacy markets.
It's sad to see how many people see Satoshi's beautiful decentralized Bitcoin and say the first thing we should do is attach a centralized project to that. They're not really seeing it. You need to make a decentralized project to work with a decentralized currency. I know it's harder, but we're not willing to accept the easy way anymore.
People push the limits of not getting it sometimes.
Will Pangman, worst technical innovation.
Well, I'm only calling this the worst technical innovation because it's trying to call itself this amazing revolutionary technical innovation. And when I read the white paper, I was aghast at how not innovative anything about it was, and that has Paycoin. I've been kind of trying to be objective about a lot of these things that alarmists are calling scams, and it doesn't take long to really take a peek at the evidence and give it 5-15 minutes of your time, and you can tell if the Chicken Littles are correct or not. And in this case, they
Sadly,
certainly are.
I just assume now that every new altcoin is a scam until proven otherwise. And I know that's not fair, but
that's what I do too.
Being fooled so many times, being goxed, being moolad, being bit stamped, being mit-palled, whatever you want to call it, you have to prove yourself. So if you're out there and you're legit, that's great, but you've got to prove yourself. And
that's also
$20 price floor isn't innovative. The way about which they were going to achieve it isn't innovative. In fact, it's like money laundering their Ponzi scheme potentially through this altcoin, which you could blame 1,000 reasons that don't trace back to you directly for why it fails. And then poof, you made off with all the Ponzi money from the mining scheme that they allegedly are doing, right? So
hey, look at my business model. We removed all the accountability. And why don't you just give me all your money and I'll make sure you get it.
That's pretty much, yeah, and just the word itself, it's talking about how wonderfully revolutionary and innovative it is. It is not those things. It's just not, so.
And they probably had one of those scrolly websites with a countdown timer. I love
how Chris Ellis said that, the scrolly websites.
They're the best, man.
The big a big splash image. You can't be expected to click on anything about what you want to know. You just keep scrolling down. Just more images. There's some text that gets in the way, so you scroll faster so you can see the big background image better.
It's clear the new web pages are not designed to be read. They're designed to be looked at. And that's a big problem if you're trying to communicate information. People need to actually, if you've put gray text on a white background, like the Bitcoin Foundation did at one point, you're intentionally making it harder to read your articles. It's really poor. But again, designers don't read, so they don't know. Worst technical innovation of 2014? Cloud mining. The ability for companies to resell shares in their miners with absolutely no proof of their existence. They could be selling 10 times the hashing power they have, or there could be no hashing power at all. It's a black box, and they're selling fractional shares. Buyer beware. Enough already. Will Pangman.
Enough already with ICOs and ITOs. I know some of these are working okay for some of the places that are doing it. I know companies like Coinify are trying to massage this process and find something that can work. I think there is something here with the crowdfunding, crowdsourcing that's possible with tokens and crypto tokens, Bitcoin, counterparty, whatever. But people got really frothy about how excited they were over the ability to just create your own currency or your own currency on top of another currency. And I think what we have is a bunch of half-baked projects that couldn't get funded any other way, perhaps, but through issuing equity in vaporware that doesn't exist yet. Or not necessarily even equity, but issuing like a right to use token essentially, or whatever they're doing. But even with the legit ones, I'm just kind of like, man, I kind of like what Gems is doing, but the fact that they were doing an ICO, ITO, whatever, really made me not look at it too much. And then when I looked closer at it, I liked what they were doing. So that's something that gets in the way for me because of the altcoin scams, because of all the scams. An ICO, ITO just is an automatic question mark for me.
Well, I think too that what we're developing is infrastructure, and like from outside of the movie, like, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that you're giving like paintbrushes and pens and markers. It's like the whole community came up and they found like a new 6-string electric guitar and a bass guitar and a drum and stuff, all these new instruments they'd never used before, and got together and started playing music. And some of the people are a little bit more delusional than others, and we're like, look at this awesome CD I made, and you put it on, and it's just like, this is not good music. This is not a good song. So I think that that's a little bit of a risk in the space, and a little bit of why that happens. We have all these new tools now for decentralized dApps and things like that for altcoins, and everybody wants to use these tools. They think that, okay, I'm going to figure out how to use these sophisticated tools, and then I'm going to profit. You need an idea that's worth a shit to have the tools make something that's valuable, which I think is a lot of the thing that people are missing. And a good idea is hard to come by. I mean, it's like you can have all the best support systems in the world, but that really good idea, it's tough. It takes some thought, and that hasn't gone away yet.
Enough already? Bit license. Super Nintendo Losky wanted his home state of New York to be the first state to regulate Bitcoin. But the incredibly negative reaction to his first draft seems to have slowed him. And now many are wondering, will the bit license ever come out? Who cares anyway? Technology is about the possible, not the permissible. Bitcoiner of the Year. Drum roll, please. Duh. For the second year in a row, the Bitcoin Group has no choice but to name MadBitcoins as the Bitcoiner of the Year. This year, MadBitcoins continued his tireless streak of making daily episodes and helped found the World Crypto Network that you are watching right now. From hosting live shows during the Mt. Gox collapse, the Bit license hearings, and even traveling to Washington, D.C., Vegas, and San Francisco for Bitcoin events, MadBitcoins is a bright, shining example to us all that you should not ask what Bitcoin can do for you, but what you can do for Bitcoin. MadBitcoins is the Bitcoiner of the Year, hands down. Honorable mention, Will Pangman.
My honorable mention is Jeremy Gardner, Executive Director of the College Cryptocurrency Network. This is an organization that was started in February of 2014. I actually talked with Jeremy on the phone, and we shared this similar idea. And this kid is a force of nature. just amazing how he's been able to grow this organization with his core crew of regional directors and co-founder Daniel. They've grown this organization to over 150 chapters on 6 continents. They have a presence at all these Bitcoin conferences. They've gotten themselves enough resources to be able to bring events to college campuses, to expose. They even have high schools and even one middle school as members of this organization, bringing knowledge and resources of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to the next generation, who's really going to take us, to that plateau level of the adoption curve. So Jeremy Gardner, he's a hustler. He works so dang hard. He's everywhere, and he's fun to be around, and he's a great guy. And he really knows how to motivate and activate people. And I just hear nothing but good things about the kids who he's hired to do this organization. It's the fastest growing nonprofit in the world. Just think about that.
Great point, Will. Incredibly impressive, the College Crypto Network. And I believe I have met him, and we were in a bar in Vegas, and everyone else was having fun, and guess what he was doing? Working on his laptop. Absolutely right, Will. Very hardworking, the College Crypto Network. Blake Anderson, honorable mention.
Honorable mention for Bitcoiner of the Year. It's a tough call, man. It's some steep competition.
You tempted to just go with yourself there? Just go ahead and go for it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with me. I was going to go with me about the most creative person, too. And I was like, I'm the most creative person on Earth. Like, never mind the fact that I can't think of a person other than myself who's the most creative person. Don't pay attention to that information. I'm the most creative person on Earth. Just take my word for it. And then, I'm the most influential person in Bitcoin, too. I'm the most influential person ever. But no, I think it's a toss-up between Ross Ulbricht, who we already talked about, and Chris Ellis, who we already talked about. I think that Chris Ellis has sacrificed his sleep and his health this year to make giant strides in Bitcoin that I don't know if honestly would have been possible. I mean, other people could have put forth as much effort as he did, but he has a natural facility for brilliance that is just. I'm glad that he's put his attention where he has, that he hasn't been, at some big old, like, hyper vicious piece of shit fractional reserve bank, like, making them better and working on their stuff. So, go Chris, my hat's off to you.
And remember, the blockchain ID is a similar invention to Bitcoin or perhaps Linux, where all of the tools were there, but Chris Ellis put the tools together into the blockchain ID. So very, very esteemed company, Satoshi and Linus. But honorable mention, Tony Galippi from BitPay. A tireless force for Bitcoin adoption, the CEO of BitPay has been traveling the world all year long promoting Bitcoin while his company continues to spur merchant adoption and more, sponsoring the before-mentioned Bitcoin Bowl, which, as we previously stated, they did not name after themselves. Truly a selfless act, although he was awarded the key to the city after the game. And now he has one more award, honorable mention for Bitcoiner of the Year from the Bitcoin Group. I guess that's about it for the 2014 Bitcoin Group Year in Review Awards. Anything you guys have to in closing? It's been an incredible year. It was really difficult putting this list together. I think we might try to do one of these in about 6 months. As everyone knows, we're operating on Bitcoin time, where 2 months feels like an eternity, let alone 12 months. So to even remember that Mt. Gox was February and the BitLicense hearings followed quick after, the China news. We had so much last year. Dogecoin came out. Litecoin went up and went down. Bitcoin went up and down. Everything went up and down. It's been crazy.
Well, Bitcoin is like life, and as Al Pacino said, life is the 6 inches in front of your face. I mean, I can't remember what I had for breakfast. That's good for working with Bitcoin, but then when it's like a year's gone by, let's review. It's like, let's review a year, and then you try to remember anything. It's like data overload. Not happening, bro. I mean, do you guys feel similarly?
We usually try to break it down. We report every day on MadBitcoins. We report every week on the Bitcoin Group. And, that's 1 day. That's 7 days. But we're trying to do 365 days here. And not just the price, but the actual events and the community and what happened.
There's almost enough to report that, like, a 24-hour news channel, if actually covering technological development, like right now the cutting edge of it, they could do 24 hours of news every single day and not run out of stuff to report. I mean, there's more stuff going on with the replacement of these economic systems of antiquity than there are with all the other human action, because these are human action afterburners. They're oxygen on the fire of human action. So, I mean, yeah, we have content at WCN every day, but it's not like none of it's fluff. There's never enough time to talk about everything. I don't think I've seen hardly a video produced on the channel where at the end it's not well, we'd like to talk about this more, but let's let's punt it down the road. So I think it's really great the amount of media that's been produced for this period in time, because people are going to want to look back at this time and they're going to want to dissect it and figure out what happened and why and how. Like we can't do with the Cambrian explosion. We can't go back and see what happened there, so it'll be good to document this one.
Yeah, I just want to say, that this year with the activity of the WCN and just how far the consistency that's been displayed, the growth, the energy, it's amazing. And to think a year ago what it was like. I mean, I've traveled a lot this year. I've met a lot of people. It's really neat to be recognizable to strangers because of this network and this show. And then they come up and they share how much they appreciate it, and that they appreciate what I said and what Tom said and what Blake has said, or anyone else. Chris Ellis. So much frequently I've heard how much people appreciate what he's had to say. We've sung his praises today a lot. He deserves it. But everyone who's contributed to this show, this network, over the past year plus, and many of them you don't get to hear about, but they're helping out a lot. You don't get to see them on shows, but they're helping out a lot, and you can too. And Tom can explain more about that, but I just want to, I'm touched, I'm humbled, I'm so grateful to have met all of you wonderful people through this network, to participate in this, to receive the recognition from strangers with you guys about our work together, and to keep doing it, and the consistency. That is so important, that every single day Tom's done a MadBitcoins video. Every week we've had the Bitcoin group and many other shows. So we just need to keep it up. And I'm excited for 2015, and thank you, WCN, and all the viewers.
It's been a great year. The World Crypto Network only started in February of last year, the Bitcoin group in October of the year before, MadBitcoins in April of the year before, but already shows like ours, shows like the other shows, even Let's Talk Bitcoin, the other competing shows or whatever you want to call them, they've all contributed to this space, and what they're doing is they're trying to spread information. We're asking questions about these companies. We're asking questions about Bitcoin. We're describing information we've gathered from other sources. We're not always wrong. We're not always right, but we're trying to do the best, and we're trying to get to the truth, and we're trying to bring the information to you, and that's what we're going to do in 2015.
And competition in journalism is really important too. I mean, you don't want everybody to be the exact same network and stuff. So I mean, we love everybody else that does what we do. It's a field again where you could have 24-hour coverage. So I mean, we welcome our brothers and sisters in the battle for accurate information.
And we're starting to see a lot more Google Hangout shows, and I'm happy for that. I watched a little bit of the Decentral Vancouver show last night. It was very cool. Decentral TV is starting to take off in Canada with Anthony DiOrio. And I look forward to it. I want to have more shows to watch.
Zapchain has a show that's very much like the shows that have appeared on WCN. And I remember doing something when Tom was rocking and rolling with MadBitcoins, gave me an idea. We were talking about having interviews at our meetup in Milwaukee. And now this is a thing. Anthony DiOrio is really taking this to the next level with Decentral TV, where meetups host a visionary, luminary, venture capital investor, entrepreneur, writer in the Bitcoin space, and just pick their brains and then broadcast that live to the world on YouTube. Everyone else, and get to know a little bit about the meetup and get to know a lot about the guest. And that's how we can build community, even though we're not all in the same place or all showing up at the same thing once a year or whatever. So I just love seeing these ideas take off, that have sort of been seeded and experimented with on this network.
And it's exciting to see how interactive these shows are. They all have question and answers on the side. It doesn't matter who you are. You can ask a question. You can usually get an answer from someone as huge as Andreas Antonopoulos, or yesterday we were watching Megan's show with Patrick Byrne, the Overstock CEO, and everyone gets their question in. He respects all the questions. He's interested in the answers. And many times you're seeing very much we're having a dialogue together. We're having a conversation. It's not just an interview. We all have similar ideas. We all believe in Bitcoin. and we just want to help Bitcoin get where it's going. And I think we're going to get there together.
Yeah, and news when you combine it with bilateral communication, because, I mean, what was the problem before? The problem was that for a long time we had TV, which is unilateral communication. Accept this and shut up. There's no keyboard. You can't say anything except for maybe in a letter that, you know, is maybe going to go in the garbage. But when you have bilateral communication systems like the Bitcoin group or other shows that allow you to call in and to have your opinion heard and to contribute and to be relevant, that's going to be really, really helpful for the future. And I hope that the medium continues to develop in ways where people can get more and more and more included.
And I was going to try to close out, but we should make this show interactive too. So we're going to go through questions and answers, even though it looks like there's a lot of jokes. Theo says, what is the best Bitcoin joke in 2014? Dan Gold responds, the biggest Bitcoin joke? Bitcoin is dead. Ha 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 ha. Good one. Let's see. They say, forget Paycoin. Lazy Hash is here. That's one of Theo's jokes. He's doing the exchange jokes. It's very dry. You have to have a very dry sense of humor to get Theo and I's jokes. But
Theo's funny, yeah, but Theo is drier than dry champagne.
I think a lot of people are still watching. We did a show a couple of days ago with Chris Ellis. We were talking about the Bitstamp problem, and Theo and I are just riffing back and forth, making fun of exchanges, and it's so dry. Like, if you don't get that it's a joke by the time he's lifted up the laptop and he's saying, all of our cloud mining is done on this laptop, all of your Bitcoins will be stored in this laptop, and that is a huge funny joke. You're just not with us at that point. You're not laughing with us.
Check out this resonant mining speed right here. Those are all your dollars at work.
Like a miner, yeah. All your dollars at work making this sound. That's the sound. That's the sound of money, Blake. That right.
Wait,
there.
you invested more than that? Hold on. That deeper. That's you.
The more you invest, the higher the pitch. Let's see. Chad Crypto says, I think this is one of the best moments of 2014. All the awesome people teaching and reporting on Bitcoin. The World Crypto Network being at the top. Thank you, Chad. Let's see. Theo's also got some code in here about a black hole and a vacuum and a proof of work hash. It looks like he's actually written his algorithm into the question. So we'll have to check. We'll have to run that later. We're going to compile that one.
He wrote a stolen code in the question.
That one's a way homer. Transaction vacuumability, hyper difficulty, Eat at Joe's, sponsored by Coin Profit and Lazy Coin.
I love Joe's. They got good food hits the spot.
We're talking about Dan Gould says, imagine the Bitcoin space without any exchanges online. And that's an interesting idea because when we do have decentralized exchanges, basically we just need a trading partner. I don't think we really need a trading intermediary. And that's what we have a lot of right now is the intermediaries holding our keys and waiting for us to make that trade. But if you want to trade, I think you'll be able to find someone in the future.
Well, I mean, think about like the application, like BitTorrent. You have all the people that have various pieces of files and people that need various pieces, and the application goes through and mediates all the various different changes that need to go on based on people's weight of who's sharing what and how old stuff is. So I think something like that, replacing exchanges, that would be freaking sweet. That would be really awesome. Let's get working on that.
We've also got Dan who says, when the Bitcoin Foundation or any so-called central group controls Bitcoin, he's out of here. So I agree too that Bitcoin Foundation definitely doesn't control Bitcoin, isn't going to control Bitcoin, and I hope they don't control Bitcoin in the future.
Yeah, good to know we'll have Dan around for a long, long, long time.
Let's see. Dan also says, and this is an opinion that has been brought up throughout the community, that Charlie Shrem might not have had the troubles he had if he hadn't tried to cozy up to government types. There was a lot of time where BitInstant was kind of explaining Bitcoin to the government, kind of trying to work with them, become a legitimate exchange in the government's eyes, and in many ways this might have drawn the scrutiny that led to his downfall. No one truly knows.
I'm pretty sure that Charlie's the leniency that he may have enjoyed, I don't know if he feels that way, but it certainly appears that way. He could easily have been made an example of and so on, but you know, he's I don't know if he's enjoyed any leniency based on his cooperation, but certainly there's probably no other way around it. If you're trying to run an above-board Bitcoin business before anyone's doing what you're doing, which is instant Bitcoin purchases, you know, for anyone, involving many protocols, including the red bat phone for MoneyGram at CVS, including, you know, whatever sort of steps you have to go through, he figured out a way to make it nearly instant, 1 hour. And he was doing that before anybody else. So he was going to invite, that invited scrutiny alone. Disruption invites scrutiny. So I don't like to hang it on Charlie's neck that because he had some law enforcement officers knocking on his company door when they changed locations because they were growing so damn fast, that he said, yeah, let me give you a tour. Let me explain to you what we're doing so you know I know the law and I'm not violating it, even though this is totally new stuff.
Well, let's hang this where it belongs then. Let's hang this on the neck that it belongs on, because he did what any normal person would do that had a large company to defend, which is to try to be as compliant as possible. So you have a giant company that you've made and put all this kind of effort into, and you want to be compliant, so you go and work with regulators. They use everything that you tell them against you in this country, and then at the end of the day, they're like, well, you worked with us really diligently, so we're not going to let you go with just the house arrest. We're still going to put your ass in prison for 8 months or whatever. It's not going to be forever to like destroy you, but we do need for your ass to be in a cage so that everybody else can see what happens to those that make up new things and that help everybody, even if you try to come and work with the government. That's the takeaway story.
Absolutely.
And the service you're describing, Will, the instant Bitcoin, we still don't really have a service like that. We're still kind of looking for a replacement for instant Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, if you want Bitcoin's instant, the easiest way to do that, if you're a man off the street, is to start up an account on Circle or Coinbase. But when you start that account, you got to wait 2 days before you can purchase instantly. And even then, you know, if you don't know to move the coins to a wallet where you control the keys, then maybe you know, it might as well not even be instant, right? So yes, it's certainly a service that I can't think of anything comparable besides local Bitcoins with cash bank deposit trades, right? So the buyer deposits cash in the seller's bank account, and the seller releases Bitcoins. That's damn near instant. That's certainly faster than BitInstant was in some cases. So that's the only comparable service, and that's kind of a, you know, less trustworthy, really. You have more instances of possibilities for fraud or defrauding of yourself, and you really have to be sharp and on your toes to make sure that whoever you're trading with is actually going to follow through, release those Bitcoins, and not send you to the arbitrator in 48 hours and tie everything up.
Plus the bank is running on, you know, ACH or SWIFT or whatever else, which is actually transmitting money around in a way that's not as good as Bitcoin. So it's like if you have a car and there's a pedestrian that's walking in front of you, it's not horrifyingly useful invention at that point if there has to be somebody walking in front of you. So
yeah, so I'd rather buy Bitcoins from BitInstant than from local Bitcoins, but local Bitcoins is the next best thing right now.
Additionally, several of the banks stopped that ability. They stopped you from being able to transfer money into an account that's not yours, specifically to stop this kind of transaction, as if the banks were worried about the fiat leaving their system.
Thomas is correct, and there is one workaround, and it'll cost you, but you can get a money order and deposit a money order into anyone's bank account, and the banks don't shy away from those. But those will cost you anywhere from like $3 to $5. So.
And our last question of the year is, of course, about the price. Visual Vendetta writes, what is everyone's opinion on the Bitcoin price in the upcoming months? Do you think it's going to go back up over 300? I think so, but I know Blake doesn't. Go ahead, Blake. Bring us down. Tell us about the halvening.
Yeah, well, right now, we have a rate of production, and the rate of production gets cut in half every 4 years. And the rate of production for Bitcoin gets cut in half every 4 years, so that there's going to be 21 million Bitcoins made by the year 2140. So right now, the Bitcoin is pretty inflationary. There's enough Bitcoin made every day through mining that there's a lot of supply going on. In 2016, the amount of supply going into the system is going to be cut in half, and then there's going to be a deflationary spiral, during which time the Bitcoin will go up, 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 up. So if you do a dollar cost averaging kind of strategy, you want to keep buying Bitcoin before 2016 and then cash out on that you know, big upswing thereafter, and then wait 4 years for the next upswing to cash in. Eventually there's going to be a breakaway deflationary spiral, and you won't have to wait every 4 years, but I don't know if it's going to be this next one or not. There's a lot that goes into it. Like, does a giant country that's really wealthy, do they have a pervasive currency collapse? Like, stuff like that can really mix up the timelines. I don't want to be too specific.
Yeah, no, I wanted to just echo what Blake was saying and point out, we could see a lot of things happen that would cause the price to go back up. Like, I think now, because of the user base and the transaction volume, we'll see it go back up much more steadily. We won't have, more than likely, we won't have bots, feeding the rally, so to speak, like we did with Mt. Gox. But yeah, when I'm looking for the halvening, I like that name. I hadn't heard that before. Good one, guys. But that's going to be the inflection point for a really big. I know, Blake, you've called it this in the past. I've heard other people refer to it this way, and I have begun to do so as well. It will be the most significant economic event in Bitcoin's history and probably the world's history.
In all of history, yep.
Yeah, I really think so, and I agree with you. So that's where I'm really targeting for the next big, 10x jump or whatever. But between now and then, I see no indications that shouldn't continue to have steady growth on the order of $5 to $10 a week on average, let's say, over the course of the year. And that's because of some of these projects that are in stealth mode that got all this VC money in 2013 and 14 hitting the ground and rubber meeting the road. And good news. I mean, there's some of these announcements that some of these big companies are going to come out with that will certainly drive interest, and the Bitcoin ETF as well. Both of them, actually, the Bitcoin Investment Trust from Barry Silver and the ETF that the Winklevoss twins are putting together. They're filed. When they get approved, they will. I'm hearing that they will get approved. I know there's lots of naysayers saying they'll never get approved, but I'm hearing that they will. And when that happens, 401ks and IRAs of people who've been on the sidelines, interested about Bitcoin, but with no liquid cash or discretionary income they're willing to risk, they're happy to risk 5, 10, 1% or more of their IRA and 401k, and they're just chomping at the bit to dive in. I know Bitcoin true believers who own only a Bitcoin or two, and they're waiting for an ETF. So this will be huge if and when it happens, and I think it will before the halvening, and then that'll just make it sing from there. The next halvening after that, though, 2021. That I think will be less significant, because I think we'll start to see the race, the demand appetite just remain the same, and the supply decrease from 12.5 to 6.25 isn't as great as 25 to 12.5. So that's why I think the biggest jump will be that 25 to 12.5.
And just again, if anyone at home doesn't know what the halvening is, what we're talking about is the halvening of the block reward. It used to be 50 coins every time you get a block. It went to 25, and the next one is going from 25 to 12.5. So there will be less Bitcoins produced, even if there's tons of miners. They're going to be getting less rewards for mining.
So imagine global gold production is at whatever level it is. Overnight, that number is cut in half, and it will never increase again. What would that do to the price of gold? Like when I this is going to be the most significant economic event in history. It will be. This is a global currency that's used everywhere. It's got its own payment network. It can go. I mean, like the amount of friction that's involved here is nothing. I mean, take the ramifications of cutting the gold supply in half as far as new gold overnight. And then take how much gold would go up, and it's not even anywhere near the orders of magnitude that are the same thing being applied to something with the properties of Bitcoin versus gold. The amount of friction with gold and trying to manipulate it and transact with it versus Bitcoin makes it so that axiomatic base situation, when extrapolated out to how the world is going to react, it's going to be amazing.
A little more context or insight onto this, with what's going on with oil, it appears Saudi Arabia doesn't care about what kinds of consequences the U.S. shale market's experiencing, or certainly they don't care what's going on with Iran and Russia with regard to that. That was ostensibly for most people, that's why they did it. Just flooding the market with more supply of oil. So this is putting a lot of pressure on the U.S. who had billions of dollars invested in the shale market. Many of these projects are being dried up right now because there's no end in sight to the supply, to the loosing of supply.
And the banks with oil and energy derivatives are really getting knockout smashed.
Yeah, and This could topple a lot of bubbles. There are many, many bubbles right now. I mean, the stock market is one. College student loans are another one. Houses are still in a bubble. And this could topple a lot of those. So we might see, Bitcoin as a digital store of value use case gain mass adoption here. As soon as those other economic inflections get close.
Well, I think that there's going to be a lot of stumbling, a lot of fall downs that are going to happen with big economic players and with the global economy over the next year. And I think that the 2016 block halving may or may not kill off fiat currency forever. It might be a deflationary spiral that's so hardcore that when combined with the events of these economies stumbling, that fiat money won't be able to compete with it anymore. There'll be a giant insurgence into real immutable ledgers, no more non-immutable ledgers for things that matter of material consideration. I mean, it just makes sense from an information science perspective. It's like metric system versus like English fractions and shit. Like, you don't build a computer using fractions of an inch. Like, that's insane. That's psycho shit. So, I mean, I think that will come to fruition as far as being the same thing with economics. So, and I think that people saw the power of the deflationary spiral that can happen. I know Willie Bot, put some oxygen on that fire, but the deflationary spirals for Bitcoin after the block halvings are a fascinating economic event that I think that everyone should study. There's not much else in history that you'd be like, oh, well, this is just like that time Billy did so and so. I mean, it's not going to be like that. So.
And in the future, all databases will be blockchain databases. I think we're out of time, but until next time, bye-bye.